So I think we'll go ahead and begin. It's 1 o'clock. My name is Joe Bailey, and this is our podcast, Thriving in the Eye of the Hurricane. And I'm just always delighted each month to do this and share with all of you and with the guests that we have today. Debbie Milam will be joining us. I'll introduce in just a second. And I just wanted to say a few words before I introduce Debbie. I just watched, Michael and I, my wife, we just watched a new video that just came out of Sid Banks. They're releasing some of the old vintage talks of his from way back when. And this one was particularly powerful for me, just hearing it. And I'm reminded again of in all the ways that the three principles, and this has become a worldwide movement going out in every language and every religion and in all walks of life, how this is impacting people's lives, and all the various ways that it's talked about and impacted. But what's behind all of this really is something that can't be seen, tasted, or touched. It's something invisible and spiritual, and how we, each of us, human beings, in our own unique way, we're all creating our own individual, separate reality of experience through the power of these three principles: mind, thought, and consciousness. And they have existed long before we existed, long before civilization existed, before time, matter, and space. The principles have always existed. And through those principles, we as human beings get to create our own unique experience, our own unique reality. And knowing that has some major impacts and implications for humanity, for all of us, in these turbulent times and these trying times that we're going through, whether it's the pandemic or the division in the world or the war in Ukraine or the climate crisis that we're in, just what's happening in our jobs, in our economies, in our families, in our school systems, in our churches. We're all going through lots of a washing machine of change and transformation. But the principles are a way of that have always been operating, as I said, and as we understand and become conscious of where our experience is coming from through these powers of mind, thought, consciousness, somehow magically, somehow mystically and spiritually, we're able to go through life with more ease, with more resilience, with more peace of mind, and with more love for people who don't have an understanding of this, to have compassion for them and understanding and forgiveness, to forgive ourselves, because I don't know about you, but I get caught up in my thinking every day and forget that I'm doing it. I'm forgetting where my experience is coming from, because this special effects department is really good. It's way better than Walt Disney. It's way better than Miramax. It is the ultimate reality generator. And it's so easy to forget that we're not only watching the movie, but creating the movie that we call life. Our friend Debbie Milam, who's here to join us today, has, when I think of a poster child for resilience, I would think of Debbie Milam. I've been with you on your journey for a few years now, Debbie, and have watched you go through many challenges, many deep troughs in your life, and also some amazing, miraculous times in your life. For all the ways that you've impacted many, many people in your, religious community, in your recovery community, in people in healthcare that you touch, with your curriculums in the school systems. You're just a truly amazing gift that we have in our lives to know you, because I think often, my God, I can't believe she can still survive and go through what she's been through and still laugh and spread joy and be as amazing as you are. It's truly a testimonial about the power understanding the principles and your level of understanding. So thank you. Debbie Milam is an occupational therapist. She's an author of many books. She's a writer of many songs. She's worked in school systems. She's worked in the healthcare community. You've been a scientist. You've been a editor or you'll have to tell more. I know you were part of the United Press International as a writer. She's got a resume way too long for me to remember. I'm doing it all by memory, and Michael knows my memory is not the greatest. So, but that's as best as I can remember. But so I'm really honored and grateful to introduce Debbie. And so maybe you want to just start by just sharing a little bit about your story or whatever you feel inspired to say, Debbie.
Joe, thank you. Thank you so much. Humbled, honored, grateful to be here. For those of you I've never met before, I'm so grateful that you're here. For those of you who I love and know, I'm even more grateful that you're here. And although I have had a blessed career with amazing opportunities, I'm just a fellow traveler like each and every one of you, trying to do the best I can to have a beautiful life in the middle of lots of life circumstances I didn't want. So just to start off, I'm sure I'm not the only one who has been through deep, dark valleys. Each and every one of us, part of the human experience. And it's one of the things that Sid often talked about, that life was a contact sport, and for me, my journey has been, I have been on a path of seeking God, seeking faith, seeking a formula not to suffer, probably since I was 4 years old. I've always been fascinated by mystics and poets and great thinkers and philosophers and anybody who saw something beyond the reality of this human experience, because mine was painful. Growing up, I had lots of challenges. And that path was a beautiful path. And I learned some exquisite things, but I also learned some things that weren't so true along the way, that how much control I had over my circumstances. And, even in the principle, sometimes people talk about that we create our own reality, we create our own experience. We don't create our own circumstances, though. We get to have these circumstances. It's what life does. But then our experience of how we move through them, what we gain from them, what comes out of them, that's the power of the principles for me. And I have a very deep faith. So when I refer to God, it's a personal God for me. But I'm also going to use terms like divine creator, divine intelligence behind life, where other people who don't have the same view of God as I do, because I understand that it's deeply personal and some people may not feel comfortable with the word God. So I'll be using these terms flexibly, intermittently, in between. And as you listen today, though, I would encourage you not to listen so you could follow Debbie Milam, but to listen, to hear your own wisdom and insights coming through, to hear what you need to hear from it, and to just sit and listen, kind of like if you were listening to a piece of music, without trying to figure out the experience or dispute what I'm saying or agree with what I'm saying, but just to sit in it and let yourself be washed in it. And there's always, for me, sometimes they come up right away, the insights, where it's just like, wow, I never saw that before. And sometimes it's in the shower later on, where it's just like, wow, that happened to me. And, you start seeing something a little differently than you saw it before. And sometimes nothing. Sometimes you just spend an hour hanging out with cool people, and that's about it. So, I'm really, today, my biggest desire is just to show you that there's something beyond your personal experience that has always been there, whether you felt it or not, that has carried you, led you, and loved you through every peak and valley of your life. That you've never had to do any of it alone, even if you felt like you did. So a little bit of my story, the last 2 years, we'll go back 3.5 years when I first came upon the principles. My beautiful friend who's on here today, Essie, had introduced me to them. And some of the first people I listened to, one was Joe. And I heard things that I hadn't heard before about my resilience. I used to think that every bit of trauma and tragedy I had gone through had a cumulative effect on who I was. And there were woundings and there was damage. And I heard from Joe so clearly that I was not any of the trauma, the diagnoses, the things that happened to me, the circumstances, but there was something deeper inside of me. And that's true for all of us. You know, no matter what you have walked through, there's a part of you that is untouched by that. Will you have emotions that don't feel good? Absolutely. Will you maybe need some therapy? Some of us would, some of us don't. Will you have a nervous system that gets a little more jacked up than others because of some of the things you walk through? Yeah, I'm one of those, you know, where I needed some other things to help me settle down. But on the whole, the part inside of us, that spiritual part of us, is untouched by the diagnoses, by the circumstances, by what people said about us, what we say about us. Because that's that spiritual nature inside of us, made in the image and likeness of God. Something so beautiful. So I learned that. I also learned the power of resiliency, that we had the ability to bounce back from pretty much everything. And that kind of put a name around what I had experienced through my life. So all of a sudden I had a different pair of glasses on. I could see the world rather than everything I had gone through, everything I had been through, to everything I came through, everything I was carried through, everything I was loved through. And it was like, wow, even saying that, there was a difference. So I decided to train as a resiliency coach with Rudy and Jules Kennard, and spent a year with them training. And there were things I loved about the principles. There were things that did not resonate at all. And I'm from the school of take what you like and leave the rest, you know? So I took what was most meaningful to me, and that was the resilience part. And that was beyond my intellect. There were possibilities, there was wisdom, there was insight, there was direction, there was guidance that was available to me. That there were possibilities that I could not see as to why things were unfolding the way they were and what my next right step would be. And I started to trust that so deeply. One of the other things that I had heard that became so pivotal in the story I'm going to share was not to believe my thinking, especially if that thinking told me to hurt myself or someone else. That we have all these thoughts going through our mind, and then we have wisdom. And to learn to discern from the thoughts in my head, the thoughts of, I'm overwhelmed, I can't live like this anymore, I can't do this anymore, this is too much for me to bear. And wisdom would come in and go, you know what? Go take a hot bath. You know what? Go take a walk, breathe, let yourself settle down, call a counselor, call a coach. And that would sound so different than the breaking news feed of I'm overwhelmed, I can't do this, I can't live like this, I can't bear one more thing. When wisdom would come in, those thoughts would settle down and I would just know what to do. And we've all done it, whether we know it or not. So I have all this training. I'm putting all this work out into the world around faith and the principles and middle school mental, social, emotional learning videos. And then COVID hits. We're in lockdown and I start having some problems with my knee. Did an MRI. They saw some damage in there. They thought it was trauma related. And I had done everything I could do. Physical therapy, healings, you name it. And it kept getting worse. So we decided to have a surgery. I have the surgery. I did great. And 2 weeks later, I went septic. And I've never been sicker in my life. And then they started running more tests, and I had babesiosis, which was similar to malaria. How we got that in Florida, nobody quite knows, but somehow I got that. They start treating me with long-term antibiotics, and after a month, I get C. diff, which is a life-threatening digestive infection. And a week later, I get COVID. And I have never nosedived so fast in my life. I'm in the hospital. I could barely even pick up a cup. I'm facing my mortality. And there was peace. There was peace that if it was my time to go, that I've lived a really blessed life in the middle of lots of really hard things. That my loved ones would be okay, whether I was here or not, that they would grieve, but they would be okay. And by God's grace, I came out of the hospital. I was put on palliative care, I thought, at the moment was palliative care, which meant care to deal with my symptoms, but I didn't have to go through any more testing or treatment, that I could just rest and let my body heal. And 3 months later, we come to find out that I wasn't on palliative care. I was on hospice care and I was deemed terminal. And no one had ever told me. And it was kind of shocking and kind of validating because I knew how sick I was. But in this time, as I'm sitting in quarantine, trying to get over the COVID, I hear wisdom. For me, it's the Holy Spirit, the voice of God, tell me that everything I had done in the world everything I had created needed to come out into the world. And I'm like laughing. I'm like, I can't even pick up a cup. How am I going to do that? And I heard clear as day, you won't have to do anything. I'm going to bring a team around you to do it. And within 2 months, our middle school mental health videos got picked up by Beacon TV, which is a public broadcasting station, for a year. Up to 5 million viewers would be seeing them. The Bible studies I had written went out to numerous prayer teams, ministries, churches, without me doing a thing. A worship song I had written was performed at church. A book that I had been working on for 9 years came out in 4.5 weeks. And I am like amazed. Number one, as one who would go through periods of weakness and struggle, I would retreat and not put anything out because it's too much for me. That was the reel to reel tape that would go, it's too much for me. I can't do this. And I got to see that I don't have to do it, that I don't have to be strong enough, wise enough, smart enough, centered enough, have a peaceful enough life to put this work out. I then got dropped from hospice because I didn't die, but I'm still so catastrophically sick. There were times my heart rate would drop into the 40s. I was telling Joe this story yesterday. And this was just one of those moments where if you think about your heart rate dropping or your oxygen saturation dropping really low, it's kind of scary. You're like, oh my God, what would I do? And, for me, my head would get so whirled up around it. And I was at our place at the beach and I'm looking at the ocean and it's just glorious that day. And there were little dolphins jumping and I just was so happy. And then all of a sudden I got super, super lightheaded and I'm like, oh, something's not right. I put on the pulse oximeter and that was before I was wearing 24-hour oxygen. And I watched my oxygen level dropping by the minute. And it dropped into the 80s, which is pretty catastrophic. And then I just thought, I'm like, wow, God, is this what happens when your heart stops beating? And I'm like, even kind of like taken back at my own thought there that I could be this peaceful. And then I watched my heart rate going down. And again, the same thing. Is this what happens when our lungs take our last breath? And then I just knew what to do. I put the oxygen on. I called the doctor. There was no rambling story in my head. I should do this. I shouldn't do this, blah, blah, blah. Just knew what to do. And I watched time and time again, whatever I needed would come. That in the middle of my own personal catastrophe, we had so many loved ones die of COVID, die of cancer, go through horrible diagnoses, go through relapse, go through recovery, go through relapse again. And it was like, every time I would feel so overwhelmed that I couldn't bear another thing. I could. Every time that those emotions would come up, the sadness, the grieving, the overwhelm, the fear, rather than believing my thinking at that moment, that was, as Joe taught me, with my rumble strip, my red flag, my GPS, to stop, drop, and pray. Lord, what's my next step? What's true here? What's real here? What's your purpose in this? What gift can come out of this? And every time there was a gift that came out of it. Every time I saw the purpose in it. Every time, no matter how whirled up my thinking would get, it would settle down and there'd be peace. Because innately, what's in me, what's in Joe, what's in Essie, what's in everybody is we are a foundation of peace. We are a foundation of well-being. And I'm like, well-being in the middle of these catastrophic health issues? And it was like, yeah, there's a part of you that's not sick. That's not the symptom. That's not the diagnosis. That's not the disease. That's innately well, regardless of what's going on. And all of a sudden, joy would just arise out of that. Peace would arise out of that. And it was that I didn't have to bypass the emotions, jump over the feelings, not grieve, try not to think about it so I wouldn't feel this way. It was that our hearts are created to hold both joy and sorrow. Grief is a natural expression of the human experience. It's built in by design. We are designed to grieve. We are designed to mourn. And we are designed to come out of that too. And then it comes like another wave. You're good, I'm standing up again. And then all of a sudden another wave comes. Some of the waves are gentle on your ankles and they're not too bad. Another wave can come, it'll hit you in the knees. It feels like a little smack and you're still standing. And then there's some that are like a freaking tsunami that just pull you under and you think you're going to drown in it. But somehow the tide pulls back out again. And somehow you can stand back up and somehow you can rise again. And I saw it time and time and time and time again. Did I always know what to do? no. There were so many times that I'm literally screaming at God, I don't know what to do. And then I would settle down and I would know what to do. And one of the stories I shared with Joe was at the beginning of this journey, I had gone to a doctor and she wanted to put me on a medication. And right away, I just, like, there was this fear that went through me. And of course, training in the principles and other personal growth work, fear. I don't need to believe that. It's just a thought. And then again, I'm like, maybe I need to check in with this a little bit rather than just dismissing it as thought in the moment. And I prayed, I'm like, Lord, is there anything here for me to see in this? What's my next right step? And I was guided to look up the contraindications of this medication. Years ago, I stopped looking up side effects because I got every one of them when I saw them. I'd get myself so nervous about them. But I looked up the contraindications, and the first one was something in my blood work that the doctor missed. And I called the doctor and I said to her, I have really high platelets right now. And this medication, one of the contraindications is high platelets because of blood clots. And she went, oh my, you're 100% right. We didn't go on that medication at that time. Full circle around, I finally get a diagnosis after 15 doctors 3 months ago that I have primary immune deficiency, which I've had my whole life, which is why I've had so many catastrophic ups and downs with myself, life-threatening allergies, anaphylactics, super sensitive to chemicals and foods. And I lived through all of that. It was like, oh my God, I didn't even know I had it and I lived through it. How cool is that? And it's, for those of you who are old enough, the movie The Boy in the Plastic Bubble was about someone with primary immune deficiency. So we finally have a treatment, and it's the exact treatment the doctor wanted to put me on 2 years ago that at that time probably would have killed me. Right now, I don't have that abnormality in my blood anymore. This doctor is so wise in how he's administering it, and I feel so much better. And I'm no longer facing my mortality, which I did 7 times in these 2 years. But what I got to see is what we're talking about today, resilience, life, love, death, and everything in between. Could I love people in a completely different way? Yeah. Because when I faced my mortality, I didn't want to waste a moment on worrying about them and getting mad at them, holding resentments against them. Life was too precious. Life was too fragile. I wanted to just love them for who they were, not what I wanted them to be. And that was not easy. But again, we have this God, we have this divine intelligence behind life. We have this creative wisdom inside of us that when we ask, show me how to love as you love, show me how to love in the healthiest way, I was able to do that. I was able to forgive things that I never thought I could forgive. I could forgive myself. I could have compassion that all of us were doing the best that we could at the level of awareness we had in that moment. What I got to see was, I was pretty self-righteous before that. Oh, if you just prayed this way, if you just thought this way, if you just took control of your mind this way, you could get well. I did. And then I couldn't get well doing those things. And it was like, oh my God, how many other people felt so much guilt and shame that they couldn't get themselves better. And people were telling them that you're creating your circumstances, you're creating your reality, And they're like, shit, I would not have chosen this reality for anything. But I got to see that my experience of that was with me, was with the God within me, was in that connection and that trusting. There was something beyond me that would carry me through.
Wow. Man, I don't even begin to know how to respond to that. That was just something so beautiful. I just want to take that in. That was just,
Thank you.
wow, amazing.
So, what I want to say to each of you right now, there is nothing special about me. Nothing. I suit up and show up every day. Maybe that's special. I connect with God, I connect to this wisdom. Whenever those red flags go off, whenever my GPS of my emotions go off, whenever my whirly swirly mind starts, that's when I need to plug in. That's when I need to reconnect. It's always there. I just disconnect from it sometimes when I pay attention to what's going on here. But each and every one of you have that same opportunity to live your best life in the middle of any circumstance you are experiencing. And I can honestly say, my life is so blessed. So blessed. Even in the circumstances I don't want. Because I don't get to pick the circumstances. I wish I did. I wish there was a formula that, you could do, you could say that would allow you never to suffer. But there's not. There's not. But you can still be blessed in the middle of it because who we are is peace. Who we are is joy. There's an endless source of wisdom that'll carry us through the things we thought we would never, ever, ever get through. And I have so many stories on my new book, Miracles in the Middle. The whole book is just stories of Debbie can't, God can, this is what happened. And it amazes me that, this girl who's dyslexic has serious catastrophic health issues, who loves people who are up and down and all over the map, that I'm happy, that I have a blessed life, that I love these people so much, no matter where they are on their journey, that we're all perfectly imperfect, a work in progress. And we all have this gift of emotions, and we all have this gift. And they don't feel like gifts sometimes, they feel horrible sometimes, but they're a gift too. And even the symptoms in our bodies. And Joe, I remember the conversation I had with you so clearly. We were doing a coaching session one day, and I had shared, whenever I grieve, then my body gets out of whack and I don't feel good and I get more infections. And you said, what if that's your GPS too? What if that's your red flag too? Not that you're doing anything wrong, but just to check in and see what you need. And boy, did that change things, because I didn't shame myself then. I wasn't afraid of grieving. I wasn't afraid of feeling, because I saw that it came and went. I saw the same thing with the symptoms. They come and go. And it's a beautiful gift. And it's incredibly hard some days. And then other days, in a moment, just like we live in Florida, so the storms come and go. You could have the most gorgeous day, and within 10 minutes, it's black as night, and the storms are going, and 5 minutes later, the storms blow out. Well, it's just like that with our emotions, too. Just like that.
Well, again, thank you, Debbie. I'd love to hear how this is impacting other people, or if they have questions for Debbie or anyone else here. Um, if you have a question, you can go down to the bottom where it says reactions. And if you click on that, there's a thing that says raise hand. And that'll put you up in the left-hand corner where James is right now. And I'll call on you. Okay? Essie.
Hi, everybody. Um, Debbie Milam, I am in awe of you and so grateful to be your friend. Debbie Milam and I have been friends for like 25 years, and we've lived kind of parallel lives, going through things together and through at a distance. And you speak so beautifully about the principles that it just touches my heart. And I'm sure it's touched everybody's heart here. And I'm so grateful that you're doing better and that you're able to speak about your experience and teach everybody what you've learned in such a gorgeous, beautiful way. And I love you so much.
I love you too.
Thanks, Essie. Good to see you, Essie.
Yeah, good to see you too.
You look great. Anybody else? Comment? Yes, Wendy.
Hi. Well, I just want to step up as a card-carrying member of the Debbie Milam devotion group. And
Growing. It's growing.
It's growing, right? Yeah. And not that anybody here needs me to witness to this, but Debbie and I became friends just before the pandemic and a little bit after she started the principles, and I had been involved with them a bit before that. And we got involved because there were a bunch of people in the principles, some people in the principles looking to say, are there people out there who are really moved and touched with these principles and see the deep wisdom in them and have an understanding or an appropriation of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, call themselves followers of Jesus? So Debbie and I found each other by kind of poking and asking questions, because sometimes that's not always a welcome question in this community or in many communities. Shall I put it gently? And so we were able to connect and find one another. We just, and we have the rooms, the halls of Alcoholics Anonymous, and in terms of 12 steps in common. We're both medical providers. I'm a nurse. She's not me. So anyway, there's been just so many intersections. And like I said, nobody here needs me to be, Debbie doesn't need for me to witness to her veracity of what she said, but I have been right stepping along. We've had so many conversations. I remember each one of these chapters as though, and they happened, I experienced those circumstances in the way that Debbie experienced them in terms of time, like this diagnosis, this is how bad it was. I was on hospice, I was in it. And each and every time I want to just bear witness to the fact that were there days when she was falling off the side of the plate and feeling vulnerable and panicky and scared and sad? Yeah. Did her wisdom kick in and say, private message on Facebook, hey, Wendy, do you have a few minutes? Yeah. Did I always know what I needed to say? No. But the human connection, and so that aside, everything she said, I'm like, oh my gosh, I remember each one of these chapters. And the other thing that came to mind as she was talking is of the fact that she said, I was never, oh, look at me, my blood pressure has fallen down to, death defying. Isn't that interesting? I might be dying now. And she would share that with me 5 minutes later or an hour later. You know what? It wasn't that bad. Maybe I'm going to die today. I'm not really sure. And I'd be like, but the interesting thing for me was that I, as a nurse and as a somebody that had a lot of interesting relationships with my parents that raised me growing up, my ability is very fine-tuned to read the tea leaves and get, my nervous system is very That's why I became a nurse, because I need to go where the danger is. I need to go where the drama is. I need to go and rescue. And I'm here to tell you, I never, ever once, and still today, have no panic or concern that Debbie's going to go anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah.
And here she is. And believe me, I used to be a hospice nurse. I don't have to be in the same room with somebody. They're telling me there's symptoms of this in the voice quality. I never, ever had any. I was like, Debbie, you've still got things to do. I'm sorry. You might want to go see Jesus today, but I don't know that it's really going to happen. And she'll tell you that I said that. Like, I'm just not feeling it right now. Not that I'm special either, but I just want to just kind of corroborate that this woman's wisdom that she's sharing with us today, and her hard-worn experience, and the distinction that she makes between, none of us can control our symptoms, but as Joe said at the outset of the hour, do we have IMAX Plus in the brain where we can make the most amazing special effects? You got it. Amazing. Really cool. And the problem is that sometimes we go into the movie theater and we don't leave. We stay there, we order more popcorn, and we keep chewing on that movie and chewing on that movie and chewing on that movie. And we just need to get out in the sunshine and go, oh gosh, I was in a movie theater for a while. And we don't do that. And that's what the 3 principles tell us, is that there's a difference. And God's got Debbie's back. God's got all of our backs, and whatever, as Debbie said, whatever you call that energy, that universal, never ending, never beginning entity. The story is the story, and the circumstances are the circumstances, but our ability to live in those circumstances does not always have to be IMAX material. We can kind of get back out of the movie theater once in a while. So Debbie, I love you. I can't even, and this has just been such a powerful time. So thank you very much for who you are and your willingness to share this with people. And I suspect you're going to be paying for this for the next couple of days with a little bit of tiredness, but thank you for putting it out there.
Thank you, honey, for everything. I love you.
Would anybody else like to comment or ask? My dearest wife, you can unmute yourself. You just go down and.
Thank you, James. I know that was you. And it's like my whole little bottom of the screen changed. And my unmute went away, but James took care of me. He always does. Well, Debbie, I just want to make sure that I just have time to thank you so much. You always inspire me. And I always love hearing you speak, but this has been very special to have you, in one big part where you can talk for a long time instead of a comment. And I think about you a lot, and your life has always inspired me. And I want to say how a beautiful job you did in bringing everything together in a very universal way. So I know that within the spirit of religion, you have a certain way of talking, and some people, as you brought up, well, you made a very wonderful bridge, and because you saw that everything, no matter what anybody calls it, is all the same, and the principles included. So you've always inspired me, and I'll tell you, Wendy, I won't say what I said exactly to Debbie yesterday, I knew she was going to be here too. She's got a lot to offer. And thanks again. I just want to make sure I got to say that. You're wonderful.
Thank you, Michael. So glad you're here.
And James, unmute me. Mute me. No, I've already been unmuted. Anyway, I don't know.
Tom is next. You can unmute yourself, Tom. There you go.
Hi, Debbie.
Hi, Tom.
I joined in a little late, so I'm going to have to watch the replay, but I really caught such a beautiful spirit coming from you. It really touched me. And I guess I just wanted to share a gratitude. You know, I came into this conversation about 3 years ago, and I was going through some medical things that, you know, they're not terribly serious in the moment, but where I really got down was thinking about where they might go. And catastrophic. And it wasn't until I got in this conversation when I realized, even just a little bit, that was what I was experiencing was just being created through my mind and my thought. And it's such a relief. I mean, there's still times today, you know, recently where I can go down, but it's so temporary because I see what it is. And I can go from feeling this like horrific dread to just feeling really seeing that go away within seconds. So I'm so glad you're sharing what you're sharing. And since I came in late, I was wondering, do you get to share with other people? Do you know, individually, do you get to see people sort of have that light bulb moment go off like I had?
Yeah. I don't work one-on-one with people. I have a lot on my website, a lot of videos, a lot of online programs. But I find, especially in this season while I'm still regaining my health, that if I can record things, great. If I can do something like this, great. But the one-on-ones are harder for me. But there's tons of resources. My new book is all around faith and the principles all woven together. And the whole third of it is about this health journey and all the miracles I saw and all these divine appointments and pieces coming together. And so I have that on offer for anybody.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And thank you, Joe, and everyone for
Thank you,
hosting.
Tom.
Thanks,
Nice
Tom.
to meet you.
Anybody else want to make a comment or a share or a question? Yes, James.
Yeah, I just wanted to also pop in and say how much over a long period of time I've gotten little bits and pieces about Debbie. So this was really great to hear a larger chunk of time devoted to just that specific issue, which I think is at the source of a lot of people's anxieties. But, you know, they don't have a situation that really forces them to have to take it on the way you did. So to take on that fear of mortality and then you know share your wisdom and your resilience with everybody is really something I'm deeply grateful for. And I don't know, you know, there's just not enough time to say any more than that, but I really appreciate it. And I'd love to hear more again. I'm sure Joe will have you on again sometime, but thank you very much. And
Thank you, James.
also, I did want to put though, I did some research about you, and you have a lot of websites and different resources out there. So if you had one in particular you wanted me to put in the chat for other people to just let me know.
It's gracelovewell.org.
Got it. Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, and there's other things in the chat room. If anybody has, you can check that out. Some of the questions might get answered here. Okay. Anybody else? Raise your hand or pop in. Yes. Hi, Marie.
I just want to say to Debbie, I'm happy you're looking so well in spite of being so ill, and you really touch my heart every time I hear you, and I know you speak the truth. It's very beautiful. So all my blessings to you and gratitude. Lots of love.
Thank you, Marie.
Marie and Debbie, you were both in the Healing Power of Mind series
Yes,
that we did. Right?
yes,
Is that how
yes,
you did
yes.
it? Yeah, that was a beautiful experience,
Woo.
that kind of came out of my own healing experience with the Lyme disease. Uh, and yeah, so tomorrow morning I'm going back to the Mayo Clinic to revisit a few things. So this has been extremely personally helpful to me as I get poked and prodded all day tomorrow with lots of different machines and things. See what's going on underneath my hood.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this
You
was
know,
very
that
timely what you're sharing, Debbie, for me. Thank you.
I'm so glad. And that time we had together, that was before I trained.
Yeah.
And I remember so clearly, there was the second day of it. I had 5 anaphylactic episodes in one day.
Huh.
And then it was like that I was okay. you know? So even when I first met you, and that's how we really got to know each other,
Yeah,
was
right.
through that. What a miracle.
Yeah.
What a miracle. And you, I know you've been through some ups and downs in your health along that way also. And you know that we're all still here today.
Yeah.
What a gift. What a gift.
I want to thank you, Debbie. I don't know if is it on? But you know, such an inspiration and so encouraging, and the fortitude. I mean, every day is quite a challenge sometimes. And I was thinking of you yesterday. I tried to, I did get in the pool, but and was able to move my legs for the first time in a while. Getting out, oh my, it really took my daughter and my granddaughter and hauling me up a couple of stairs because I just didn't have the strength. And I thought, okay, acceptance. And that you came to mind. You know, I thought, just receive and are grateful for what we do have. And so whether I can do that again, I will. It will work out. But thank you. I love you so much.
I love you too, Kathy. You look gorgeous.
Oh,
You ought to take that one in, Kathy. Just take that one in.
Kathy and I have known each other for so many years, and boy, have we prayed each other through a whole bunch of stuff, haven't we? Yeah.
Anybody else have a comment, a share? Oh, Bob. Where's Bob? Oh, there you are. Okay. He's
Hi,
moving around here. The guy that can move. He can move.
Hi, Bob.
hi, it's very nice to meet you, and I just want to thank you so much for sharing. It just is so meaningful. And when Sid Banks says, and you know, when you said, you know, just listen to it like music, the spirituality that you share and is so obvious really comes through. And when Sid says, listen for a feeling, I don't know how anybody could listen to what you have to share and not come away with that beautiful, warm feeling that you get when you hear truth and somebody like you sharing. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Bob, so much.
And I would like to add, I didn't want to appear because I don't look at my best, but what the heck. Anyway, I have to say this could not be more timely for me because I've been in and out of the emergency room 3 times in 4 weeks in order to get some kind of diagnosis. And there were times where I really thought I was facing my mortality. And I just love what you said. We don't control the circumstances. They come to us, but how we go through them, how we experience them, what we learn from them. And I mean, I was having like guilt, like, oh, what have I done to myself? I've, you know, this eating whatever, whenever. And as it turns out, what they thought was a heart attack was really GERD. As far as we know, I have more testing to go through. But your wisdom and your bravery and your ability to just be calm, go through it, observe it, be curious, what is happening. This is so beautiful. And so many people need to hear this because these are scary times for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bless you.
Thank you. Bless you too.
And the prayer and the meditation helped me so much. Turn inward and listen and calm down enough to listen.
100%.
And
100%.
friends who call and care and you know they're there. It made me think of Jesus saying, where two or more are gathered in accord, there shall I be.
Amen. 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 You know, and it's so powerful how sometimes the hardest circumstances are what draw us so much nearer to what's always there, you know?
Yeah.
But when we're healthy and everything's going great, sometimes we can be so self-reliant when that power is there in well-being or in illness, always there. You know, so now it's like, I don't even want to go through a good day without that either. You know, it's not just this desperation calls, you know, but that being plugged into that. And I often think about our cell phones. You know, if the battery is not charged, you can't do anything with it. For me, if I am not plugged in to God, divine wisdom, divine creator, I got nothing, even on a good day. You know, but when it's fully charged and plugged in, I have access to so much more than what my limited thinking can do.
And I have some attention issues, especially when you're in pain and start to panic or get anxious. And I thought, where is the love? Where is God? And all of a sudden, after I asked that, I saw everything as particles, like pixels, and God was in the dance of the atoms. And I mean, it was everywhere. I could feel it in the inanimate objects as well as the people around me. So just your idea of staying curious, and I just asked, where is God in this? Where is love? And all of a sudden it was there everywhere with every person that came in the room and everywhere.
That's so beautiful. And scientifically, from a neurological perspective, and this like lit me up so much when I found this out. So we have a fear-based part of our brain called the amygdala. When that's lit up, rational thought shuts down, as well as connection shuts down, because we're in fight, flight, or freeze. When we're in pain physically, many times we go into fight, or flee, or freeze. When people meditate on a God of fear, a God of judgment, fearful God, that fear-based part of the brain is so active. When you meditate on a God of love, the amygdala, the fear-based part of the brain, automatically shuts down. Prefrontal cortex lights up, rational thought, wise decision-making, self-control. But the other thing that lights up is the anterior cingulate, which is connection. So you're connecting to what's always there. And how beautiful your questions pointed your mind in that direction of what's always there. Gorgeous.
Thank you.
Thank you for grounding us in science again, too, Debbie, as well as.
Oh, I love that's like, that stuff lights me up.
Well, we're just about at the end of the hour. We'll take one more comment if anyone has one before we wrap it up. Anybody else on the edge of your seat? Oh, there he goes, Pete.
Hi, Jay. Hi, Debbie.
His honor, Pete.
Debbie, I just wanted to say thanks so much for sharing. You've really opened my eyes up to quite a lot tonight. Well, I say tonight, it's this evening over here in the UK, but thanks. It was absolutely beautiful. Really enjoyed listening to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, Pete.
And you.
And on behalf of all the others who haven't said anything, we just want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts for what you shared so eloquently, with so much feeling, with so much truth, with so much clarity. This is going to live on for eternity because video on the internet does, I believe. And so I hope if you got something from this, pass it on so people can listen to this if they missed it today. And I look forward to seeing you all a month from now. We're going to have a young man, a 22-year-old from Florida named Joseph Nigan, who's just a remarkable soul who's going to talk about thought, the beginning and the end of all suffering. So very much in line with what we've talked about today. So Debbie, thank you so much. Do you want to say any final words?
Number one, I'm so grateful, Joe. Thank you for everything. Thank you for this opportunity. And I'm just so guided now to remind each and every one of you, if your thinking ever tells you to hurt yourself or someone else, don't believe it. Reach out, call somebody, talk to somebody. You don't have to act on a thought in your head. It can pass. That thought is not who you are, but don't try to do it alone. I love you all so much. This has been such a joy, and thank you.
Thank you all for coming. And hopefully we'll see you again next month. If not in the future, bye-bye.